Located in the eastern Himalayas, Bhutan, a Southeast Asian nation, is sandwiched between China in the north and Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam and West Bengal in the east, west and south. It has its capital, Thimphu, located in its western flank. Neutrum, as its currency is, stands out a little harder. Bhutan has a total area of 38,394 square kilometers, with altitude varying from 180 meters to 7,550 meters above the sea level. Formed by different ethnic groups, the total population of Bhutan is close to 7 lakhs. Local time of Bhutan is 6 hours ahead of GMT and half an hour ahead of Indian Standard Time. Bhutanese follow Mahayana Buddhism and Hinduism as their religion. The Bhutanese way of life is greatly enriched by religion. Most Bhutanese homes have a special room for prayers, which is known as a mandir or a chasham. National symbols of Bhutan comprise of the national tree, the sagebrush, blue poppy as the national flower, takin as the national animal, and raven as a national blood. Archery, which is played with zeal and enthusiasm, is the national sport of Bhutan. Brief introduction of people. Bhutanese are friendly and hospitable people. The large majority of Bhutanese people are a homogeneous group divided linguistically into 3 broad subgroups such as Lhotshampas, Sarsops, and Ngalongs. Besides this, there are many smaller subgroups, many with their own language, which forms about 1% of the total population. Some of these groups are Bomtaps in the Bomtang district, Shanglo in the east, Layapas in the northeast Bhutan. The subgroup of Lhotshampa, which now forms a large section of Bhutanese population, joined the Sarsops and Ngalongs and helped during the last century to develop a greater variety of Bhutanese mosaic. Entry of Lhotshampas in Bhutan. Lhotshampas, the people of Nepali origin, has a history of its own. Rome was not built in a day. This cliché applies to the entry of the Lhotshampas into Bhutan too, which took place in 4 distinct phases. First phase, Queen Brikuti Devi of Nepal and 33rd King of Tibet, Songtsen Gampo, initiated the first Nepali settlements in Bhutan in about 649 AD. Brikuti Devi requested Songtsen Gampo to take a team of Nepali artisans from Kathmandu Valley for the construction of monasteries in Bhutan. Second phase, Shindu Raja, the ruler of Bomtang district, invited Guru Rinpoche to Bhutan and further requested him to bring along with him a group of Nepali-speaking followers and assistants in 747 AD. These Nepali people settled down in Bhutan along with the former group. Third phase, King of Nepal, Ramsha, warmly welcomed Lama Zabdrung Nawang Namgyal in 1624 AD. By signing a formal agreement and a document, Ramsha gave 42 families, including carpenters, masons, and skilled artisans, to construct jongs and monasteries in Bhutan. Subsequently, they were given land to settle in western Bhutan. Fourth phase, Zabdrung Nawang Namgyal, again in 1640 AD, visited Kathmandu Valley during the reign of Dhammar Shah to further strengthen friendly ties. While returning to Bhutan, he took many more Nepalese people along with him. Nepali-speaking people, termed as Lhotshampas, slowly diffused to various regions of different districts of southern Bhutan. Treatment towards Lhotshampas and social integration. The fourth hereditary king of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk, then initiated the policy of social integration in order to check the rise of communalism. Lhotshampas were encouraged to marry ngalongs and sarshops by motivating them with monetary rewards as shlera. Education and health facilities were provided on gratis. Lhotshampas by degrees got accommodated and assimilated among the sarshops and ngalongs. Government provided loans to develop agriculture, house construction and livestock farming. The Lhotshampas continued to enjoy these facilities till a wraith-like day stood in front of them. They call it a doomsday and they call it so even now. King Jigme Singye Wangchuk and his acumen feared about the devotion, skills, talents and creativity of Lhotshampas, anticipated fear of losing power in the long run, forced him to start a cruel census policy which made the Lhotshampas its easy victims. Census policy and growth of resentment among Lhotshampas. The happiness and prosperity, however, of the Lhotshampas were replaced with disillusionment and adversity after 1989 AD. The census policy of royal government of Bhutan swelled and sowed the seeds of resentment among Lhotshampas. According to Censorship Act of 1985, Lhotshampas who had already settled in Bhutan prior to Act of 1958 were treated as genuine Bhutanese and placed in the category of F1. The people of other categories had to pay a fine to the government. Nobody was allowed to marry a non-Bhutanese ever since then. A rather unique census exercise was undertaken in southern Bhutan in 1985 based on the new citizenship policy. Mrs. Sita Mote committed suicide in Chokana Gewok in Chirang district as a protest towards the evasive ploy of the royal government of Bhutan in the name of census. She was graded as F4, categorized Bhutanese simply because she was married to a Bhutanese man. One of the senior most Lhotshampa representatives of the Royal Advisory Council even advised the former king, Jigme Singye Wangchuk, to amend the census policy that otherwise was geared against the Lhotshampas. But the royal government of Bhutan turned deaf ears towards the otherwise benevolent come philanthropic plea. The royal government of Bhutan began demanding tax receipts of 1958 to establish evidence of residence in Bhutan on or before 1958 AD. Based on the criteria, census teams categorized southern Bhutanese under different F groups. F1, people falling under this group were considered genuine Bhutanese. F2, those who left Bhutan and returned were stuffed into this group. F3, people who were not available during the time of census were put into this group. F4, a non-national woman married to a Bhutanese man was included in this category. F5, a non-national man married to a Bhutanese was included in this group. F6, children legally adopted were included in this group. F7, all migrants and illegal settlers were included in this group. To add salt to the wound, in the census exercise of 1990, Lhotshampas were asked to produce certificate of origin (CO) to prove themselves as a genuine Bhutanese. Those who failed to produce the certificate of origin were asked to forcefully pay a huge sum of fine, which was an indirect pressure to leave the country. The exclusion of Nepali language from the curriculum further intensified and frustrated Lhotshampas to drag towards the agitation. Lhotshampas were to render free services in terms of gundawala, or forced labor, on roads and mines. All government constructions such as roads, bridges, schools and local government offices, and even army loads were to be carried out through compulsory labor without any wage, even though the government received foreign aid for such works. There is no record, however, of labor used from Ngalong community. In fact, forced labor policy and practice in Bhutan was a type of slavery system. Lhotshampas had great contributions in the national development, but nothing is written in history about their contribution in sweat and blood. While both men and women were free to choose their partners for marriage and both can initiate a divorce in Ngalong community, a complex caste system prevailed in the Lhotshampa community. Before 1988, policy of one nation, one people, one language, one race was promulgated, making national race Goen Kira compulsory for the Lhotshampas. Peaceful demonstration in Bhutan. The first peaceful demonstration took place in 1948 AD in Dagana district. Bhutan State Congress was launched in 1952 AD. It launched Satyagraha in Sarpang district in 1953. In the same year, a son of the soil and hero of the south, Mahasur Chetri was stuffed in a sack and thrown into river Sunkos alive in Sirang district. In the same year, development of prevalent Nepali language and culture was recognized by the government. However, sadly but truly, in August 1989, teaching of Nepali was banned in schools and Nepali curricular materials were removed from the schools and burnt in public places under the government's faith. Many Lhotshampas joined hands in their efforts to save themselves from the yoke of injustice. Students' Union of Bhutan originated in Bhutan. Peaceful rallies and demonstrations under the banner of Bhutan People's Party demanding fair justice against the dress code, language code and religion code resulted in arbitrary arrest in September 1990. There were intimidations, tortures, intrusion into villages, rape, detention without trial and incommunicado, which caused the forced migration of Lhotshampas who sought shelters away from their motherland. That resulted in more than 1 lakh Lhotshampas leaving the country and living in exile. The frustrated agitation, however, lost its glory when government declared national emergency. The permanent leaders and the innocent people were caught and imprisoned. Many of them were killed in prison itself and others got severely tortured. The security forces deployed in the disturbed areas started raping, threatening and looting the people. The government succeeded in convincing the Ngalong's community about the act of terrorism of the Lhotshampas and sowed the seed of antagonism in them. This way, the coherent existence of social harmony dissipated. Aftermath of peaceful demonstrations. All schools and other institutions in southern Bhutan were closed down. Curricular Nepali textbooks were disgracefully and insultingly burnt in public. Many Lhotshampas working in government services were terminated and forced to leave the country. Lhotshampa students who had to produce no objection certificate from the police department for admission in schools and for further studies. If any member of a family was involved in the peaceful demonstration of 1990, they would not be admitted or get any post in the government services. If any member of a family took part in the peaceful demonstration, he or she was asked to leave the country. Apple gardens, cardamom orchards, and orange orchards, and all the movable and immovable properties were seized by the government. People had to sacrifice their productive land and comfortable living and had to vacate the country. Sealing of southern borders took place from 1990 to 1995, and some settled in India, and thousands of people were compelled to seek humanitarian asylum in 7 camps in eastern Nepal. The Royal Bhutan Army deployed in the southern Bhutan started torturing people by even passing urine to their mouth for the want of water, raping innocent women and burning public houses, and even giving inhuman treatment and adding rape cases here and there in the villages. Forcefully evicted, and then the sorrow started pouring in the bank of Kankai River Mai in Jhapa, Nepal. While in the camps, due to uncongenial environment and hygienic conditions, irrespective of their age, health and state, hundreds of infants, elderly people, women and children, and even youths, they gave their invaluable life under the scorching sun and in the dreary desert of River Kankai Mai in the beginning of 1992. By seeing the pathetic condition felt upon the refugees, international organizations and other welfare organizations working for the victims of such human disasters, they started pouring the aids to them, and United Nations High Commissioners for Refugees, UNHCR, then started managing the camps. Then, in consultation with the then His Majesty Government of Nepal and local administration and the refugee people, then UNHCR started taking them to different refugee camps in eastern Nepal. As stated earlier, they were then taken to Beldagi camps, namely Beldagi 1, Beldagi 2 and Beldagi 2 extension, Timai, Goldhap, Pathari and Khudunabari. Still, the same people that we can see now with our eyes over here, they are there living their life so miserably that very few human hearts can only tolerate this painful sin. Still, The wound that they had before is still alive, is still itching, and reminiscence of their youths and children they lost back in Kankai Mai, they have kept in their mind and shall be keeping throughout their life. After 1994, on seeing pathetic condition befell in the life of refugees, later the Bhutanese refugees were taken to Goldap, Temai, Pathuri, Khudunabari and Beldangi camps under the patronage of the UNHCR. Then camp management committee headed by camp secretaries in each camps were established. Camp secretaries in the camp look upon social and administrative matters and assist UN agencies and other implementing partner agencies in running the camps in systematic manner. In order to provide security in the camp, refugee volunteers are deployed. Children below 18 years are engaged in their free hours in organizing social awareness program in Bhutanese refugee children forum centers in different camps. Refugees work hand to hand in managing all the activities in the camp. After reallocating in the different camps, Bhutanese refugees started building in them sense of brotherhood, sense of helping hand, and looking after the elderly people in difficult hours. Elderly people are said to sit in the public places for their comfort and in order to refresh their otherwise mind through different activities. Not only this, irrespective of their sex, male and female,